I have a wonderful electronic invention I want you to see. It looks something like this.
Welcome to the CTO Studio. I'm your host, Etienne de Bruin. The CTO Studio is where we chat with CTOs building amazing products with incredible teams. Have you chatted with a CTO lately? Welcome, Mel Gordon.
Thank you.
To the CTO Studio. Do you know what the CTO Studio is?
I think I'm in it.
You're in it.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of whiteboards.
Beautiful lighting.
I remember a couple seconds ago, you asked me if it was going to be a couch.
Yes.
And you're on a stuffy office chair.
I was hoping that I was going to get to lay down.
There is the second part of the podcast.
Is lounge
There
session.
is lying down.
Okay.
Now, you also took me through a loose lips exercise.
Yes.
Red leather, yellow leather.
That's correct.
Now, something I noticed when I became an American citizen was that it became easier for me to say water. Before I was an American citizen, I insisted on saying water.
Which just happened, by the way.
Just happened.
High five.
Thank you.
Okay.
But now I'm just like, hey, water, man.
Water.
I want some water.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
I don't know if what happened? The switch there. It's like now it's my country. Now I'm okay with saying that.
It's fantastic.
Don't try and order water in a restaurant by saying, can I have some water?
Okay.
Because water is a word that many people brain does not
Function properly. All right.
Okay. It's not a chip I carry on my shoulder anymore.
Good. Good. Order a beer.
Yes. Beer. Because it's also a hard word, right? Beer.
Uh-huh.
Beer.
I often say bear. People are like, what?
Do you have a favorite beer right now?
I am drinking a lot of red wine lately. Less calories.
And does red or white wine have less calories?
They're red does. Similar, but red does.
And is it true that tequila has no calories?
Yes.
That was captured on video. You realize that? Yes. So I was at a cocktail hour the other night with a bunch of chief technology officers. And the one person is married to the CEO. And he was telling me that the money raising part has been hard for them. Great idea, great company. But the potential investors were frowning on the whole husband-wife team thing. Now, do you have any experience with this?
Just a little bit.
You happen to be matrimonially committed to a CTO?
I am. Our 13-year wedding anniversary is coming up.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
13 consecutive years?
Consecutive in a row, but furthermore, we've been together for 17 years.
That is shocking.
It's kind of crazy.
As a CEO, CTO couple.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
My wife and I have been married for 22 years.
Nice.
But she's not my CEO.
Sure she is.
Yes.
Yes, she is.
Tell me about building a company, A, with a husband, and B, with a CTO as a husband.
Yeah. So
and you built a technology company, so it's even more pronounced.
Yes. So I would say the husband and wife duo is something that I wouldn't change for the world. An initial knee-jerk reaction we get is, oh my gosh, how can you do that? And we feel quite the opposite. So we spend a lot of time together. And we've had to be really intentional about the boundaries that we've set. So we're 6 years in. The first two years was he and I and a salesperson. And so it was a lot of long hours and late nights. And I remember one of the first boundaries we had to set. It was late at night. I was in the bedroom. He was outside the bedroom. We live in a 1-bedroom, 800 square foot condo, as if we weren't, close enough together as it is. And he was saying something into the bedroom and it got heated. And I was like, no, we should do it this way. And I poked my head out and I said, new boundary. like I'm in the bedroom half dressed and we're like trying to have a legit conversation about the business. And so our new boundary at that point was we're never allowed to talk about the business in the bedroom.
The bedroom.
Yeah.
But the living room's okay.
So that recently changed.
Which direction?
So the boundary bedroom was, okay, this is our sacred place. And it's pretty hysterical. Sometimes it's, hey, I want to, and then it 2 seconds later, it's like we intentionally leave and it creates this line in the sand.
So you physically move out?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And you have the conversation and then that's amazing.
Yes. So the newest one is, long days, you come home, he's typically training and working out after work. We eat dinner fairly late and it's, 9, 10, running on 11 o'clock and we're trying to have a strategic conversation about the business when typically we're tired and it's the end of the day. And this happened last week and the conversation that we were having was going nowhere fast. And we literally just recently put our second boundary in place and it's called no talking about the business until once we're done with dinner. Now, sometimes dinner is done at 8 or 9 or 10 p.m. But if we've already eaten our dinner, it's this new thing that we're trying out because you have to learn how to turn it off or you're going to run yourself in the ground and get burnt out.
And I think that's really just a rule, not even just husband and wife. It's I found myself being the CTO of a company where my CEO would just call me all the time, every day.
So it doesn't
anytime.
matter if you're, in the same condo or not. It's the texting and the slacking. And I've heard it all, right? Oh, my co-founder is texting me at 12 o'clock at night, at midnight. It's like, great. CEO or founder, this is a choice. You get to be in control of setting those boundaries with your founder. And it's so important.
Have you run into situations where potential investors were concerned that it was a husband-wife team?
Yes.
Interesting.
So it came up in the beginning when we're earlier stage and we had really fantastic traction, which was a key way that we raised money was on verifiable traction. And it did come up once and it doesn't have to be a thing. And the way that they were coming from, I try to put myself in their shoes. And where they were coming from is what happens if you get divorced, right? And it's like, okay, if I close my eyes and put myself in the shoes of an investor, I can't say that I wouldn't think the same thing. Two of the biggest reasons companies fail, co-founder conflict, you run out of money. Okay, at this point in time, we had been together for 12 plus years. And I'm thinking, you just had invested in a company where the founders have known each other 2 months and we've been together for 12 years. Like, you better think through that one.
Which to me, that paradigm is the same as saying, well, when I want co-founder conflict, there's this other thing, this other safety net called personal relationship that has been signed and agreed to. But I guess the brain is somehow wired towards thinking the worst case what
divorce.
If scenarios.
It's like, okay, and I get it. And so I if there's anyone out there that are, the husband-wife duo or you're even dating, and I mean, we love talking about this with people. It really matters and it's important. It's becoming more and more of a norm. I mean, family-ran businesses. And in tech startup world, sure, husband-wife teams. I mean, there's some big ones in Silicon Valley, right? Huge successes. So there's pros and cons to it, but if you can be confident and maneuver your way through it with investors, then it shouldn't be an issue. If you're partnering with the right investors, they're not going to care. I remember we were having lunch with our seed stage investor up in San Francisco, and it was myself and my husband and the two of them. We went to lunch, and they said, "You have the same last name. Are you guys related?"
Wow.
This was after the round had closed.
That's the biggest compliment you could have gotten, right?
And we kind of smiled and laughed, and they're like, "You guys are married, huh?" Like they had said, "Oh, maybe they're brother sister or related." And it wasn't until a month after it never mattered to them. It never mattered to them. So there are those that it doesn't matter. It's not a big deal.
It would be great for me to kind of find some data on like if you look at incubators or seed funding around trying to rapidly build these teams, right? Kind of riffing on what you said earlier. Two people are put together, they know each other for 2 months, and now there's this big bet being made on them. I'm wondering how many long-lasting friendships get ruined by startups versus how many long-lasting relationships get birthed by startups.
Right. I'd love to see the data on that. I'm super fascinated by it because I've seen the opposite where we have really close friends, two guys, they've been friends for 15, 20 years. They go and start a company together. It doesn't make it. Their relationship gets a little stressed and they're no longer friends anymore. It's really heartbreaking. So it's just, it would be fascinating to see what that data tells us.
I had a Twitter exchange with the CEO of Y Combinator, and we got into a little bit of a disagreement on this, just friendly, but it was he made what seemed like a wonderfully idealistic statement, which was great ideas or attract friends to work on it together that turn into great companies, and I think the predicated upon friendship thing there might be overemphasized these days, where it's like, listen, let's just get the right people in the room. Everyone knows their roles and responsibilities. No fuddy-duddy emotional stuff. Let's just get this done. And then from that could be forged great friendships.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about TapHunter, please.
Yeah, so TapHunter is a technology startup headquartered here in San Diego. So we're a premier technology company for bars and restaurants when it comes to driving more foot traffic and boosting their profits.
And it started as an idea that the two of you had?
Yes. It was his idea, actually.
And when did you say, wow, we should make a run for this?
So this was about 7-8 years ago as the craft beer industry was exploding. And I said, there's something here. And so we had a consumer-facing app, but we had some tools for the businesses. And we had some close friends that were running these hotshot pubs and taverns. And I said, wow, they're the ones that need the most help. And so we went straight for it. Our vision from day one has always been helping local businesses. And so we just happened to start in the niche of, specialty beverage locations.
And was the delineation of roles and responsibilities pretty clear early on, or did you have a DTR moment?
No, it's always been clear early on. So this is not our first time working together, actually. This is probably our third or fourth time. We ran an agency before this, and then we met at a tech startup in early 2000. And during that time, he was director of technology. I was the marketing director, and we loved working together. It was magical. And so that's what we know. And we worked on big projects together, and then we started freelancing on the side, and it was just like, you do this, I do this, boom. And so it came very natural, and we're very, very, very lucky. It's still that way today, and I think there's not a day that goes by that I don't take that for granted. That's
awesome. So the you guys, so your relationship was sort of, like you said, it's all you've ever known.
Mm-hmm.
So this was 6-7 years ago. Let's talk a little bit about female-fronted tech company, female CEO, the woman in tech vibe.
Sure.
What was that like back then? And have you seen positive change, or have you seen moderate change? What's happening for this specific genre?
Yeah. So I think what's interesting is that people like to talk about it. There's an emphasis on it. I was brought up that it didn't matter what your gender was. And so 6 years ago when I went out to raise money, and, I'm an incubator and I was one of 9 companies and there was only 2 female founders, it was not a big deal to me. And I've just always operated with, it doesn't matter that I'm a female. Like, I'm going to go work just as hard and earn everything that I deserve, just like everybody else. Now, have there been, the peaks and valleys of, oh, wow, this is a thing. So I was having dinner with some really close friends last night. They were asking about the fundraising process early on. And I said, yeah, there were particular incidences where I was treated differently and poorly. And, came across a lot of misogynistic men, and it's out there and it still exists today. Like, I feel like it's getting better. I see a little bit of progress being made, but I don't think it's anywhere close to where it needs to be.
Yeah, I relate to that a little bit. Yeah, we don't edit this podcast, Eric. Please, can we? No, what I wanted to say was, as a South African, being a white South African, I always felt like I was, the whole of South Africa was paved for me to do whatever I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget, soon after our country experienced a transition, I walked into a department store and I was the only white person in the store.
Wow.
And that was the very first time where I realized I was being treated without having said a word, without having disclosed what I was buying, but just by looking at people, they were going to treat me differently without me having done anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember feeling afraid, cold and lonely. I felt very, very weird.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
And I think that felt sort of disarming. And okay, it's I'm not playing the victim card, but I'm just saying that was a moment where I thought I'm being judged and dealt with right now simply by my appearance or what the majority of people thought I was.
Yes. Yeah, it can be a crazy experience, but I like working and helping and mentoring female founders to step into their own and to be confident. And it's it can be crazy out there, but there's a lot of advantages to it as well. You start to hear things like there needs to be more female on boards, and there need to be more female-led venture capitalist firms, and all the research and data coming out about how much more successful certain companies are when there's more diversity with females there. So it's exciting that those things are getting more notable, but there's a lot of work to still be done.
So if I want to be part of a movement that says there needs to be more female tech leadership,
Mm-hmm.
I'm obviously genderizing there, right? I'm basically saying I would like to see more female tech leaders.
Mm-hmm.
Is that in this day and age? Is that okay to use that lingo?
Absolutely.
And then if someone says to me, "Well, why?" If I use some generic statement like well, it's just better, or there's more diversity, there's more differences of perspective and differences of approach.
That right there.
Yeah.
Perspective, approach, life experiences, all of that. Those things matter when growing and scaling a company, not to mention when hiring and developing culture of a company and making feel people included and heard, and showing people inside your company that it's not just male developers, right? That there's females. I was having lunch the other day with a founder friend of mine, and his entire dev team is all females. And I said, I want to come to your office and sit and drink coffee and observe. Because that's amazing to me.
It's amazing, but could also not be good, right? Because
no, he says he loves it. He told me that there's no ego around them or competitiveness that sometimes exists between men, and they all work together. And the first thing he touched on was just their communication style.
Yes.
And so I just sat back and was like observing the way that he was describing his 100% female dev team, and I got the goosebumps hearing him talk about it. And he's the founder of the company. And
did he intentionally do that?
It
seems
that
to,
way.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't dig that far, but I'm sure there was some intention behind it. Absolutely.
I run a few hackathons for especially for people who are junior devs, and so code school grads and the like. And whenever they do pairing in teams of 2 to 4 or 5, I can see a distinct difference between teams that are either only male, only female, or a mix.
And what is it? What are the differences?
I would say the most unsuccessful teams are the mixed teams, because the men usually dominate conversation to a point where the female doesn't the women don't feel like they have a voice. The male teams generally get a lot done with low quality, and the female teams tend to get very little done with supreme quality. That's just sort of anecdotally like what I'm seeing in these little hackathons.
Very interesting.
In fact, when I see teams naturally form and there's a hybrid, I tend to step in a little bit and try and facilitate and move people around. So, how would you mentor? Do you, just top of mind, do you have 2 or 3 things that you generally tell female founders? And I'm going to see if it can apply to female tech leads. Are there things, so you mentioned something that just came out, which was confidence. Boosting confidence is something that I think any inexperienced person needs. But are there 2 or 3 go-tos for you, just based maybe on your own experience, that you tell female tech players?
So I think one key thing that I've worked on there, and with females inside of our company, there's a great TEDx video out there called The Power Pose. And body language is so important in the way that you carry yourself. And so I've had sales reps and marketing coordinators and whatnot in my team, and we have had a female dev apprentice as well, actually. And it's just important, right, to own your space and not take a seat at the table, and don't sit in the back corner. Like when we're having product meetings or marketing meetings or sales meetings or a company update meeting, right? If we're all at the table or in the room, it's like, don't sit in the corner. Take your space. What is you deserve, right? And working with them that, so the power pose is, I shared this with them before every company update meeting that we do, and I still do this today, where 5, 10, 15 minutes before I'm addressing the team, giving an update on the quarter or the month, I go into the bathroom, and I power pose in the mirror, and I kind of get centered, and I get focused, and it's just a habit that I've developed, and so I try to share that with other people. It's really, really important.
I think that plays into, or sort of supports, this idea of self-affirmations, where you instead of living in, I find that one of the weaknesses I have is I live in this gap of who I think I am and who I think I need to be, and I'm just never good enough. And there, in everything that happens to me, it could reinforce that. Like, this CTO is doing amazingly with their company, or this one knows how to process
comparison.
This. Yes.
Comparison is the quickest way to dig yourself a hole.
And affirmations can sort of combat that,
yes,
right?
Absolutely. Comparison is a huge problem and challenge with founders in the tech industry. The other piece of advice that I give founders, whether they're male or female, to be quite honest, is that don't fall victim to the TechCrunch realm, which I like to call the People magazine or the Inquirer of the industry. So it's really easy to wake up in the morning and read your tech news and whatever else you read, and you're on TechCrunch, and it's like everyone's killing it, right? And you're just like, how could this be? Like, everyone else is fucking killing it, and you're just like, but what over here, and so comparison is a bad trap. It's a really bad trap. It's really easy to fall into. So that's another thing that I like to give people a little warning on.
And then I made a note here on identity, which a transformation I had to go through as a techie to really embracing my identity as a salesperson. As I'm an entrepreneur in my own business, which is 7 CTOs, I used to walk around with, well, these CTOs that I'm trying to get into the organization are going to see right through me as just trying to get them into my little network. And it's unbelievable how loud those voices are.
Yes.
Where you just embrace an identity of, I want to serve and help. And you either want to join and there's a lot we can do to help, or it's
not.
or not. And
that's
everything's
phenomenal.
cool.
I just got the goosebumps. Sales and business development is very near and dear to my heart. So watching people, regardless of what your title or previous profession was, transform and understand the power. I mean, sales has kind of, just a stigma in general, but like what you just said is what true business development and sales is about. Like, if you truly believe in what you're offering, and that it's going to help people or change lives or whatever else it is, then the rest will follow.
And it's
right?
it's coming from a place of truth and
Yes.
it's not contrived, and you don't feel. And I think that's a problem. And I'm wondering if there's a correlation with the CTO at the in the C-suite, who oftentimes struggles to raise sort of their opinion, who isn't always willing to sit at the table and speak up.
Yes.
And that analogy or that example that you gave of a woman, female tech person or whatever, sitting in the corner and choosing not to contribute.
Yeah. I mean, some of the other advice that myself and my husband give when we're mentoring or having lunch or coffee or whatever, because we love helping other entrepreneurs. And so typically a founding team will have more like the business marketing side and then the tech or, developer CTO side, right? I mean, hopefully there's not like 3 dev founders sitting around going, we're going to build something. And it's like, well, who the fuck's going to sell it, right? So what's really important when you're early, whether you're 2, 3, 4 founders or you're a 5-person team, everyone has to be selling. It's everybody's job to be selling. I don't care who you are. That's great. You can build beautiful product. But if no one's going to buy it, you don't have a business. And so, again, my founder, like, he helped bring deals in the early days. He came home with checks after walking into a bar and selling the software that he built. Does he do that today? No. Could he? If I said, hey, we really got to, get this certain thing off the ground and I need you to go out and hustle and bring in 3 deals, he would do it. And so that's another area I think I'm passionate about, trying to help people that are reluctant around sales and business development, that might not have done it before, that might be more of a tech or dev founder. You're going to have to pick up the phone. Yeah. And it can be really, really scary, but it's so fun.
And suddenly that makes sense when people ask you, well, are you really passionate about the problem you're solving?
Yeah.
Where it's like, no, I don't really care about that. I'm just building the tech. Well, at some point it's going to come head to head, and that business isn't going to go
One way to
anywhere.
know if you're really passionate about what you're building and trying to get out into the world is if you can pick up the phone and have a conversation with someone about it, as scary as that may seem. And if you can't, then you might be working on the wrong thing. Right?
So the characteristic, I want to talk a little bit about your experience with your CTO. So you just mentioned just that great quality of believing so much in what they were building that they're out there even talking about it and then closing deals. Mm-hmm. What other characteristics do you feel your CTO brought to the table that you wouldn't exchange for the world, or like has just contributed to some of the best moments you've had at TapHunter?
It's around culture. So culture starts at the top with the founders. And I've seen this where the technical founder is, or co-founder is, just not invested in what culture means. And that's more than having a ping pong table and beer on tap, right? Like forget that.
That sounds so good.
So intentional culture for us has been important from day one. And so he is a CTO and a co-founder that can empathize with people. He can help in interviews and pick out, does this particular sales rep fit the culture? And energy, right? You got to be able to bring energy to the team. And sometimes that's really hard for the profile of a
Mm.
dev or a CTO,
Mm.
and I understand that. Like, he gets his energy from being more solo and coding on product, and I get my energy from being around people. So we have to find this balance to make sure that he also has enough energy to give to the team. So a really great example is when we sign up a new customer, we ring a bell in our office and like stand up and give a standing ovation and high fives. Your CTO and co-founder needs to be right there doing that, right? This starts at the top. And when you're in the C-suite or the executive team, everyone's watching what you're doing. And so the CTO has an immense amount of impact on culture. And in some of my other colleagues and friends and other companies I see where I see the CTO isn't doing that, or they're disengaged, it can be really sad. It can be really catastrophic, actually.
Yeah.
So that's something that really, really resonates with our CTO, my
Yeah.
CTO.
Yes. Are you underlining the my?
Yep.
You can take him wherever you go.
Everywhere I go.
Yeah, that's kind of why I have a semi problem with this term fractional CTO is sort of, I'm only going to give you a fraction of the rah, because I think the role gets distilled to, as long as someone has our technical strategy covered, we're good to go. But the cultural piece is so phenomenally important.
If people care about that, then the CTO has to show up to the party for that too. It's really, really important.
How have you as CEO negotiated disagreements with the CTO? I'm going to try and ask you to take the husband-wife hat off, which is probably easy for you now. But when so I think that there are scenarios where there's a CEO, CTO with sort of relatively minority stakeholding, and then or sometimes nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You guys obviously probably more in the majority stakeholding situation. So your CTO is showing up as an owner, passionate about the outcome of the business.
But that's not always the case.
Sure. So generally, what tips would you have for CEOs who might say, listen, my CTO is brilliant, but we keep on disagreeing. I don't know how to work with the person, introvert, whatever. But how have you navigated sort of those types of C-suite disagreements?
So I think what's really important is he owns the strategic and product direction, and obviously I have a lot of input too. And then my side's more marketing and sales. And so it comes back to do we trust each other? You got that, I got this, we meet in the middle. And there's going to be disagreements, right? If we're trying to get a product launch, which is always revolves around some sort of timelines, because I've got sales goals to hit and I want the product or the new version or whatever done by certain times. And so that's probably a more common one. And being able to compromise and find middle ground. But as a CEO, it's also my job to push the team without demotivating. But it's my job to push the team constantly and make sure that we're pressing the envelope, we're being innovative. And so it is a delicate balance. We have leadership meetings with other managers on our team, and oftentimes I know that there's a path I want to go down on a particular thing and pushing, but sometimes I'm not going to do that with everyone else in the room, right? We're going to kind of take it to the side and figure it out between the two of us, or prep before the management meeting so we can be aligned and on the same page. Yeah. So there's often not enough hours in the day for the CEO and CTO to be constantly aligned. Yeah.
And so you mentioned earlier that in your case, the CTO owns the product,
Mm-hmm.
product strategy, product development roadmap, features. Is that? So do you have a VP of product or a?
We have a product and marketing manager, and he is a fantastic conduit between the two of us. So when the three of us are in meetings, and I respect the heck out of this guy, Matt, and he's working with a husband and wife team too. So very, very brave, courageous person to come in and own sitting in the middle between us, right? And so there's a very special just alignment also between the three of us. And so he is a fantastic conduit between the two of us.
Have you seen things that make Flash happy and things that make him sad as CTO? And then are you able to do more of the one and less of the other? Or is it just in terms of fulfillment?
Yeah. So one thing that makes him really happy is developing other developers. He's the most patient person that I've ever met. And he is a fantastic teacher. I think in another life, he would be like a collegiate swim coach or like a computer science professor, right? And he has this just natural ability to teach, and he loves it. He loves it. So that's really exciting, watching him be excited about developing his team. Things that make him sad would probably be when I'm stressed out, right? We're trying to hit sales goals or certain marks with the company, and I'm extremely difficult on myself, those sorts of things.
Yeah.
And so that's hard for him. And so I have to be really, really careful with that, because I don't want to zap all his energy away. So I have to set myself up with my own support network, right? So I'm not just always draining him.
And I think that what often happens, and probably more so in your case, is we're all programming each other behavior, because we're either rewarding good behavior or we are sort of chastising bad behavior. And then what the other party does is they learn then, oh, well, this makes them happy or this makes them sad. And then we start reinforcing behavior that ultimately then has a long-term negative effect.
Yeah.
And I just think it's such an important part to be able to look at each other and sort of, get rid of that static electricity.
Right.
Tell me, so I've seen you go from not a runner to a runner. How did that happen?
So I didn't know how to run 4 years ago, literally. I was on basketball and volleyball and couldn't figure out how to run. And Flash started doing, my husband's CTO, Flash, started doing some shorter distance triathlons, and I got hooked with that, and then started taking a step further and did a few half marathons. And then in 2016, I did my first full marathon with a running coach of mine who was a childhood friend. She's
now,
also
full marathon, you mean like where you go from the beginning all the way to the end?
26 miles.
Holy moly.
Yeah, crazy town.
The one foot in front of the other.
It's a lot of miles. It's a lot of miles.
Did you power through some audiobooks?
I can't listen to audiobooks or podcasts while running. I listen to music. Yeah.
I was on
hardcore house, techno, EDM kind of type stuff.
I think that your brain needs that dopamine, which music does that.
Yes. So running for me is really become a meditative state for me. I can turn my brain off, which I often cannot. It's one of the things that I actually do alone. So I train by myself, and there's just a lot around it that just matters to self-care, right? If I'm not taking care of myself and I'm not healthy, then I'm not going to be a great wife. I'm not going to be a great CEO. So I've really had to find my discipline and balance around taking care of myself.
And on that note, how do you have any tips? So do you have, I'm assuming with the running, you maybe have increased your self-discipline. Have you been able to apply that to a daily routine, to some sort of thing that you do every day? Like you talked about the affirmations in the restroom maybe, or when you need to engage people. How do you have like a morning routine that you feel works for you and sets you up for a successful day?
Yeah. So the first thing I do when I get out of bed is I pee, and I don't get on my phone, and I run. And on the mornings I don't run, I meditate. Then from there,
meditation.
Yes. So once I've completed my meditation or my training run, then I'm back either home or, present. And then I typically will scan the news for the headlines, check email and Slack just to make sure there's nothing going on with the company. Then I'll get ready. And I'm very lucky I get to walk to work every day. And so on my way into work, I'll listen to a podcast.
Like this one.
Business, yeah, this one or lots of other, business type startup podcasts. So that's my routine and has been my routine for probably the last 3 to 4 years. It's very, very, very specific. And then most recently, I deleted Facebook from my phone 2 months ago.
Bold move.
And it's been mind-blowing.
And has Facebook's ad algorithm gone nuts with you? Like they don't know what to show you anymore?
Yeah, it probably did, and I'm not on it, so I don't know what they're trying to show me.
Because I think
right now.
shortly after you did that, Mark Zuckerberg had to face the Senate.
Yes.
Because you deleted your app?
So that's been a very interesting... What was going to be a 2-week experiment has turned into over 2 months now. So I'm just going to keep on keeping on.
It's incredible how, just doing those little things to set ourselves up to succeed.
Yes.
And then how the brain gets so hooked on... I mean, I found myself scrolling through Facebook and I do not know why I'm doing it.
It is so scary.
There's nothing on there that is in any way, shape, or form
adding value to your life. Unless you've, set up your feed in particular ways, sure. But I was like, great, I'm going to do it for a week. And then it was 2 weeks. And now it's been over 2 months. And it's very crazy to kind of stop and look and choose to do those sorts of things.
So with this morning routine in mind, can you sort of now look back and predict when you're going to have a good day and when you're going to have a bad day?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah. So if there's mornings where it's just like, oh, timing or this or that, and I didn't get one thing in or kind of get to go through, I really have to center myself on my walk into work to reset if for some reason, any of that didn't go the way that I wanted it to. And I have to be flexible with myself and not beat myself up. But that very specific morning routine has been instrumental in keeping me on my A game and running a company. It takes a lot. It takes a lot of energy, but about 100 times more than I could have ever imagined, than anyone could have ever told me.
And so you've navigated changes at your company. I think we're constantly being asked, am I doing the right thing at the right time with the right people? Am I spending every dollar exactly the way I could be spending it in order to set myself up for success? And I just think that noise, it's just, it's like a tornado that is geared towards destroying your identity and your confidence, i.e. then you feel like an imposter.
Oh, yeah. You suffer from imposter syndrome too?
Right now I'm pretending to do a podcast.
It's a rare disease, so if you find a cure for it, let me know.
No, it's
Some
tough.
days you walk around, you're like, they're going to find out. They're going to figure me out.
Well, even worse is the way you feel about yourself.
Yes, ridiculous.
So as we close, do you have any thoughts about the current startup scene and vibe? You've obviously been immersed in it in San Diego now for a long time. The thing I often am concerned about when I look at the startup culture is people think they have an idea and then they are suddenly part of a culture. Like I am the CEO founder of some idea A, B, or C. And then there's this whole business that is geared towards supporting those people without really caring about the idea. But now there's all these programs, mentorship. I had someone go into great lengths about something the other day, which I was thinking, this should not be the conversation you should be having with me at all. There should be other types of validation questions you should be asking yourself, and yet fully immersed in the startup scene.
Mm-hmm.
And so is there advice that you feel that's percolating, or is there some observations you're making? Are you excited generally? Are you concerned generally? What are some comments you have about the startup scene?
So I have never been more excited about the San Diego ecosystem in general than I am today. So I'm one of the founders of San Diego Startup Week from 5 years ago, and I also sit on the board of Startup San Diego for the last year. And the leaps and bounds that our local tech startup community has made in the last 5 years is unbelievable. I show up to all hands meetings we're in full mode of preparation for Startup Week, and there's nearly 200 volunteers for our organization. And it's just phenomenal. And so I'm really excited about that. We have a lot of work to do. I think that just in general with just startups, in general is ideas are a dime a dozen. And I've always seen this, right? And I had a lot of ideas even before TapHunter. And if I'm being perfectly honest, it's one of 5 different things that we built, right? And you don't have anything until you have traction and a paying customer that isn't your brother or sister. And so I think one of the things that breaks my heart is when people can't get past ideation stage, or they want you to sign an NDA because they have this idea. It's never been more easy, or it's never been easier to build or start a company than it has been ever, I think, in history. And so I don't care about your stupid, shitty idea. How many customers do you have? And how fast did you get them? And how long do they stay with you? And I don't care if it's 5 customers, right? And so I think that for any new founder or entrepreneur or wherever you are, just build it and pick up the phone and get your first customer, right? You've got to start somewhere, and don't get stuck in business plan mode and get stuck in just always living to the next pitch night, and right? Like, no, just get out there and hustle. Get the first version of your product out there and get a paying customer.
I think that's probably the best way to objectively see if someone's idea sucks, right? Because I mean, there's a lot of shitty products out there that people are buying en masse. That had I been the person to mentor or advise that person, I would have said, dude, do not do that. And yet, incredible. I mean,
it's all about execution at the end of the day.
And what I love about the idea of saying, hey, pick up the phone, go get the customer, is they will tell you whether it's awesome or not.
You're always going to think your idea and your product's awesome.
Not
it
your
doesn't
little
matter.
startup circle.
Yes. It's the customers who are going to tell you if your product matters.
Do you have any advice for people who are shit scared to call their customers?
Go knock on a few doors and sell some candy bars or Girl Scout cookies. I mean, you've got to get out from behind the screen, whether it's the phone or in person or whatever else it is. And if you don't know where to start, go online. Google Inside Sales 101. Go to one of my favorite sales guys is Stelly FD with Close.io. And the internet, YouTube and all, you can learn sales in 2 days. Right now, obviously, it's a lifetime of a skill set. But if you just Google, cold calling 101, hundreds of videos are going to come up, and literally with people doing real cold calls to show you how it's done. I get it. It's
I think
scary.
It's completely underestimated component of, I think a lot of it is geared towards the business plan, go raise some money. Well, there's this whole other world of go get a call script, pick up the phone and talk to somebody.
Or the other one I see a lot of, because we're software as a service, right? That seems to be a big, commonality with startups these days. And it's self-serve, right? We're going to send 1,000 emails and we got this self-serve funnel. And that's how we're going to get our first 100 customers. Well, if that is you, I want to talk to you, because that's obviously the holy grail, right? And so I see a lot of founders on a hope and a whim. They're like, we're going to be 100% self-serve and we're never going to have to talk to our customers. And that's what scares me. Those are things that actually scare me. That's not reality.
No.
You're going to have to talk to some people.
Yes. And I, one company I'm involved with right now is we have install parties, kind of a throwback to the 80s where all us geeks would bring our desktops into someone's living room and then pirate software and do install parties. And we're also, we're skipping the whole they're going to go through a wizard and they're going to know what to do. No, you're going to sit next to that person and you're going to talk them through how to sign up to get those first customers.
Yeah.
Brilliant, Mel. I think the CTO Studio thanks you. I'll call HQ and see if they approve. But this was amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have you chatted with a CTO lately? Hi, thank you for listening to the CTO Studio. If you don't mind, take a quick second and please rate and review the show. It helps us a lot. Go to thectostudio.com for more information on what we're doing at 7 CTOs. We also have a video or two for you that could be a helpful resource for you as you're managing your company. So thank you for listening.